activists should prioritize making good lifestyle changes, because it can increase our own fighting power as activists when we're doing what really matters, organizing the resistance against capitalism, as I talked about in other videos. If you have not seen them, they are in the description box. But it doesn't end there. Lifestyle choices or recommendations can be incorporated well into organizing too, and strengthen the movement as a whole that way. We will also talk about what limitations exist and how to deal with them. Improving individuals' lives. The same way that smart lifestyle choices can improve our own lives, we can, as activists, put lifestyle into an organizational context and make these things available to a larger audience. This way, we can make other individuals' lives better, which is a huge win in itself, but there are many more advantages of a line like this. Things like minimalism and microhouses can give more time, and veganism can give better health. But these actions can also be a good step one into activism. So, people making these choices are not only giving more fighting power, but they are also growing a habit of a form of direct action. By organizing in a way that promotes good lifestyle choices, we're creating a pool to recruit from consisting of people that have time for activism and are already used to the idea of direct action. A huge problem that many activists are facing is that revolutionary groups tend to consist of mostly white men. Many of the organizations promoting what we have discussed tend to be dominated by women. This is an opportunity we must exploit. A small-scale example of this could be to organize workshops teaching people to cook healthy plant-based foods, and combine this with a critique of capitalism, handing out pamphlets and getting their contact information to recruit for more traditional activism. This can give us a better opportunity to acquire gender balance in our organizations. As we've discussed in my earlier videos, activism is tiresome. This, combined with the fact that people tend to end up in full-time jobs and live unhealthy lifestyles, leads to a situation where activists are mainly young people like me. People tend to be activists in high school and college, and when they're finished with that, they run out of time and energy when they enter their full-time jobs. This is a huge loss of resources. We need to keep people active for a longer part of their lives. Or in other words, activism needs to give something back. Activism must become something that gives time, energy, and health, not something that drains it. How to do this is the million-dollar question, and I will attempt to give some solutions in this video. Building rewarding communities. When I talk about activism, the first stuff that comes to mind is probably stuff like stickers, posters, writing and giving speeches, bashing the fash, meetings, demonstrations, study circles, and similar stuff. While all of these are important tasks that need to be done, they are merely the means of doing what can give us actual power on the ground. Building anti-capitalist communities that reflect another world or prefiguration. Those that do build these communities are often not very well organized, and those that are well organized will at best involve themselves in labor unions. So we're in a situation where the cool part of the left is either doing one of two things. Either we obsess with making everyone understand the details about cyclical time as expressed in the society of the spectacle, or we're creating cool communities that riot and party. Of course, I'm exaggerating and exceptions exist. So, what I'm saying is that those that are building cool communities are forgetting organization, and the organizations are forgetting the communities. But I digress. My point is that when we're creating communities, things like squatting, really free markets, cooperatives, etc., we should be incorporating things like plant-based eating, minimalism, and other empowering lifestyles. This is because, if it's done correctly, at least parts of our activism can become rewarding activities that give people time, energy, and health. At the same time that we're building alternative structures, or dual power. Examples of this could be political houses offering vegan food cooked and paid for in groups, removing some workload for people. Another example could be to organize shared consumption, for example by having commonly owned storage spaces controlled democratically in an organization, etc. Similar stuff exists, things like food not bombs and really free markets, but my impression is that these normally exist as isolated initiatives. This is nice, good initiative if you're doing this, but unless we get these kinds of things into an organizational context, they will not ever be a real threat to capitalism. Prefigurative experience. When the day comes that we might actually threaten the state for real, as I briefly mentioned in part 1, it would help a lot if people had some experience with organizing horizontally. Otherwise, replacing capitalism is going to be a chaotic process, if possible at all. Luckily for us, organized lifestyles gives us a lot of opportunities to give people this experience. Imagine if an organization of ours has built a microhouse village with shared consumption to some degree, maybe even shared meals, and most importantly with direct democratic organization. Then we've essentially given a number of people a practical education on how our new society might function, and they don't even need to be socialists for it to work. The lifestyle aspects merely function as a strengthening tool that can turn the initiative more rewarding. Makerspaces are a growing trend right now, and the same can be done there. There, it's even possible to prefigure what communal ownership of the means of production may be like. Or maybe microhouse villages and makerspaces can be combined, etc. You get the idea. A very real issue is that if the initiatives are made in isolation, you get a cool commune there, a really cool squat somewhere else, but they don't function as a power against capitalism at all. The most resistance you'll get are some riots when people try to evict squatters from their places in many cases. We need a combination of large-scale organizations and smaller, more specific revolutionary organizations to increase the likelihood of our prefigurative initiatives expanding and eventually gaining real influence in how things are done on the ground, until we're ready to tear down the system, building institutions. When these kind of communities are expanded to a larger scale, and we're not only talking about some makerspaces, squats, etc. here and there, but we're talking about large networks of these kinds of communities, well-coordinated informal organizations, we're creating strong organizational centers that strengthen our activists a lot. Long term, we can find ourselves in a dual power situation with a huge amount of people having prefigurative experience, organized, ready to tear down the system. So, what does this have to do with lifestyle? Well, in a dual power situation like that, it is simply an advantage for us if we prioritize giving ourselves more time, energy, and health, and helping people make good lifestyle choices is absolutely going to help us achieve that. Okay, what is to be done? So, everything I've presented so far has been a little all over the place. Let us explore what this means for us now. When it comes to food, our organizations must, at the very least, when we have the resources to do so, offer our activists information about healthy food choices and the science around diet. This can be solved in many ways. One could write pamphlets about it and give it to every member, but I think organizing workshops is the most effective way to do so, as it offers the participant actual experience and it allows for outsiders to participate, which, as I've mentioned, allows for some anti-capitalistic undertones. People with lots of money really like to distort science if they can profit from it. When it comes to minimalism, I think this at the very least means that we should be offering information that challenges the idea that a full-time job is the only path towards not starving to death, and giving people resources that can make people work less in a comfortable way, like online certificates. We should also provide information about low consumption solutions that exist, things like microhouses and multifunctional furniture. At a more advanced level, it means having internal education and creating workplaces of our own. But right now, it means that you, the viewer, should learn about this stuff and get yourself some experience with it so you can push it in your local organization or use the info if you're starting one of your own. Limitations. Before I end the video, I'll briefly mention some of the challenges that exist surrounding the ideas presented. If the focus on lifestyle is exaggerated, it can cause a few significant problems. One thing is that it may increase the threshold for getting active in the first place if it feels like a requirement to join. Another problem is that a cult culture may arise inside the organization, creating a negative atmosphere, again raising the threshold to become active, or it may even make it difficult to discuss strategy. Either way, I think the solution to that problem is to present the lifestyle choices in a "this is something you can do if you want to" way, or in other words, give people the information and resources necessary to start if they want to start, not a "this is something you should do if you're a real socialist." That's a subtle but really important difference. Of course, eating plants and other individual lifestyle choices do not tear down capitalism. And if lifestyle focus makes us forget the other organizational work we need to do, we'll fail.